Snyder's plans kind of derailed what John's had planned. Continuity. I'm a big continuity geek.
This is random comic story for the week.
So, but I'm definitely not making popcorn and Twizzlers for that one. Ah!
Paranoid about leaving my windows open when I'm sleeping. You could get up on there and you could just come in the window. It sounds
keep
kind
that
of
in mind.
Paranoid, but it's how it is.
Thanks. Wake up!
People are weird.
Oh, more than weird. If there was a word for being weirder, I would adopt that for people.
Yes. People are just weird. They're Sheehan.
They're Sheehan weird. Be like, you know what? They're not weird. They're Sheehan. Oh.
Yeah. There we go. It's no longer just a noun. Sheehan is now an adjective. This is so Sheehan. Sometimes I am Sheehan, but I always feel bad about it afterwards.
Oh, yeah. And this book sucked, by the way. I won't say it sucked, but between you and me, it sucked. But the backup story was really cool, though. And it's like Greg Capullo and Jim Lee had a baby.
That man was doing his sit-ups.
Yeah, he was. He was like, oh, they're going to get me on a shirt. Let me do like 2 sets of 100, taking a year off and eating chicken nuggets.
When he's Val Kilmer's age, he'll look like Val Kilmer.
Oh. I hope I don't look like Val Kilmer when I'm Val Kilmer's age.
My new vegetable is scotch. He's been on both ends of the spectrum.
And man, I'm like, man, what a handsome guy he was in 95. Dude, Dr. Chase Meridian. So Batman. So Batman. Kim was in 89 and all she did was scream. I remember watching it as a kid and have to like get ready to turn it down with the remote. Michelle Zombie Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh yeah.
The third one was Chase Meridian. 4 was mainly like him thinking of Uma Thurman as she blew the
Clooney, right?
And Arnold.
That was so horrible.
So
I knew it was going to be bad as soon as it started with that whole like rollerblading / ice skating thing.
I'm Batman. And it's like, oh boy.
I should have bought comic books instead of spending my money on this movie.
Oh, I still bought comic books. It's the same thing. What I'm smelling and what I'm watching.
Oh man, Robbie, you're never going to top this. We're on a roll here, and I think we're already off the rails. But if we're not, any announcements that you want to cover? I think you have an announcement that you want to make sure we make.
Sean O'Connell.
I'm not sure what to say about that.
We're not really in the algorithm yet.
Do that thing where it's like, these guys look like total weirdos.
Like sometimes she is.
That's like looking at a Val.
Well,
that's like looking at Val Kilmer.
Oh, you want to get cocky? Okay.
Well, hold on a sec. We can fix this. You rap and do like stuff. I just like the lights.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the big town. I'm not Sheehan. He's not Sheehan.
No.
Sean O'Connell's not Sheehan.
No.
Oh, Sean O'Connell. We're going to have Sean O'Connell on the week of September 5th. Sean O'Connell, he with Great Power and Responsibility book, but my personal favorite, the Release the Snyder Cut book. Sean O'Connell, the author and the content guru of Cinema Blend on YouTube, and also the Real Blend podcast will be on Sheehan is Dead Comics.
Ooh.
September 5th.
Yes.
We go
so
hard.
That should be exciting.
We go hard. We fished that one. We got a big fish. So make sure you tune into that.
Should be really interesting. As you may know, if you've watched any of our prior episodes, or you may not, if this is your first episode, and if you
welcome.
Welcome. We're glad you're here. And so Brian is the DC guy, and I'm kind of more of the Marvel guy, although I'm not as much of either of those.
You're not a zombie.
I'm not a zombie. No, I could still go to work.
You were on the edge of, when you were younger, you were half human, half zombie, more human, but
for a relatively short period of time. And one of the things we'll be talking about maybe next here will I'll kind of give you some insight onto my window on that. But Brian has been, I've been on the fast track, the accelerated program to get to get acquainted with these films. So I've done the 3, and what I still need to see, which I will before Mr. O'Connell joins us, is
Zack Snyder's Justice League.
The Zack Snyder. So, you know, speaking of that, as you know, I was at Out of Print Comics on Thursday on the way home from work.
And where is Out of Print? Give him a shout out.
That's in East Greenbush,
New York,
upstate New York. And he's got a great shop. He focuses on singles, tons and tons and tons of singles. He doesn't do, if I haven't noticed that he doesn't do cards, he doesn't do games, he doesn't do statues. He's
that's awesome.
Totally
in comics,
just tables and tables of singles. Yeah.
Bravo.
Yeah. So, and he's got a collection of CGC stuff available. Not like huge, but they're there, and there's some good ones. And he just really is all about the singles. So I was in there, and we'll see what I got, but I was mentioning that I was watching these films, these DC films, and as soon as I took a break to gather some breath, he's like, "Have you seen the director's cut or the ultimate?" He didn't say ultimate, but have you seen the master cut? He called it of Justice League, and I didn't really know what he's talking about because I know there's 2 versions of Justice League or 3 or whatever, and I had just been overwhelmed. I didn't know what was what. And then it came out what he was talking about was what the Snyder cut. So when I was talking, he was quiet about all of it, but then he was like, "Have you seen the Snyder cut?" So I need to see that one yet.
Well, I'm glad somebody else has been a proponent to nudge you along besides myself. So
Out of Print Comics, his prices are very fair, and he's always got new stuff coming in, and it's almost like he's got more stuff coming in than he can handle. Because there was stacks. Okay, so I'll kick into this. So the buy of the week here. This is what I got.
Hey now.
There was a pile next to all the long boxes. Then there was this pile of loose stuff just sitting there, and it was like some magazines, which is usually what I'll go after because that's not where people are looking oftentimes in the comic store. And in that,
hey,
yeah,
name that boot.
Right, name that boot. So the X-Men Companion 2, which was
what year?
Was awesome because let's see if there's a date on here. 1982. So I'm like, oh, what's the deal with this pile of stuff? And he's like, "Oh, I just haven't done anything with it yet. Friend brought that in." And I'm like, "Can I go through it?" And he's like, Sure. So I pull this out and put it. I'm like, "Can you give me a price on it?" He's like, $3 work. And I'm like, "Oh yeah." But the fun thing about it, it's black and white inside, which is usually less cool. But the content's really it's like seriously long interviews. You got a Chris Claremont interview, John Byrne, Terry Austin, and then Chris Claremont and Louise Jones, and then talking about specific story arcs. And the thing that makes it especially fun for me, so it's about 125 pages, is like this is talking about all the stuff that I was buying in the late 70s. So it's like commentary from the time that I was doing. So I was really excited about that.
That's cool.
Then he had gotten in a box of someone's X-Men collection. And so here we have, is it focusing for us? My camera.
Yeah, good.
So Cable and Cyclops number 310. And so of course we've been listening to
Robbie,
Mr. Liefeld, and he was talking about the like the age of gimmicks.
Yes. Gimme gimmicks.
So we have
that has the card inside.
The cards. It still has the cards. That's why I got it.
Who drew it?
Who drew it?
Yeah.
This is 1994. So this would have been like during Robbie's peak or just about peak. John Romita and Dan Green.
Wow, John Romita. Who drew the cover?
I can't tell its initials. It says like JR, and DG.
All right,
It would
JR,
be
JR,
Romita.
John
It was.
Romita Jr.
So
Wow,
he did the
okay.
cover too. Yeah. So then
Because
go
I
ahead.
know that back then, you know, Rob talks about how like Jim Lee really made the name for himself when they had those collector cards too. You know, they had the cards, and then they started doing that at Image, you know, for like Youngblood and the other stuff.
So I totally, in my
Wow.
original collecting period, I missed all of that. I didn't, it's like,
Yeah.
it was just comics it was just about the art and the story. There wasn't like the packaging. And that's the thing, is I'm digging through this box. I probably could have bought the whole thing because it was just loaded with early mid 90s X-Men with every type of gimmick that Rob talks about. The foil
cool.
cover, the
I
embossed
love
cover,
those. I still love them.
yeah. So, and what
I'd
was
buy
even
them
better,
now.
on the back of the same one was another copy also with the cards. So I got two of those, both with the cards. I was psyched about that. That was fun.
Nerd.
I know. If I go back, when I go back, if the other gimmick cards, because I didn't know the prices at that point. He's got a table up front, and it says not priced, but feel free to look through it. So I'm pulling stuff out, and I had no idea what it was going to cost, and he ended up charging like $1 for all of them that I took out. So then it was like, oh. Off the wall, I got this Kirby. The Kirby cover of the week is on vacation this week because it's summer, the end of summer.
Wait a minute. that right by your index finger, it almost looks like Dennis put a mark on there with a marker.
Dennis, yeah. Dennis owned this comic.
That's an inside joke, everyone. Scott and I went to the Albany Comic Con, and there was a comic. What was it? It's from like the Silver Age, and somebody wrote Dennis on the front, but the guy was still selling it. So Scott and I joked that, oh, we got to get the Dennis cut.
Yeah,
we need the Dennis special.
Yeah, has that been signed by Dennis? Oh, man.
I want the Dennis copy.
They're rare. They're rare.
Super. And it was Dennis with two N's.
Yes, just like Dennis the Menace, right?
Yeah.
So then there was this with a Kubert cover.
Cool. Oh, Kubert. He was the man
Andy.
back then.
Andy.
He was the man. Well, he's still the man, but
so I thought that was fun. So
I loved his art.
I'm trying to educate myself on these guys from the 90s because I totally was not in the loop at that point.
When his brother Andy came over, because Andy and Adam both did work, you know, obviously they were Marvel stalwarts. But when Andy, was it Andy? I think Andy was the one who came over to DC, and when he drew some Batman, I was so excited. Batman and Son, when he just discovers, you know, Damien's his son, he does that whole arc.
I want to say I think I saw some Kubert Batman there at the store that day.
Yeah, I have it in my Batman Grant Morrison omnibus. Like his art is really good, and you can tell it's him, but it's still to this day it's you know.
Well, their father was super good in his day,
yeah, Joe,
you know, and they just built on that.
Sergeant Rock,
yeah, or Tarzan. Now, and then there was this, which is cool. Now the reason, if it
can't
come on
see
camera,
that one. There we go.
So the fun thing about this one is that was the first Jim Lee X-Men issue, 248. Now this one I think is super gorgeous, and I don't see identification on the cover, but I'm going to have to assume it's going to be the same art as inside, but maybe not. So how do you say this? Duresma, Duuresma. Look at that. Isn't that awesome?
That's awesome. That looks just like the X-Men 90s cartoon.
It's really, I was just like, wow, that's super striking. Super striking. So I was excited about that one. And then of course I had to go for this. I couldn't say no. And I think I already own it, but anyway, X-Men versus Micronauts, two of my total like guilty pleasures together in one magazine. And that one was only 50 cents.
You
But
can't beat that with a stick, 50 cents for Micronauts and the X-Men.
I know, right? 25 cents each.
It's living large, dude.
This one I kind of got, in honor of you.
Oh, neat.
Yeah,
That's
12
cool.
cents,
Wow, really?
1965. A 12 cent, a
Oh,
12
right,
cent
right.
issue. Yeah,
How much did he charge you for that?
$5.
That's not bad, dude.
So it says, Lois, you thief, how dare you try to steal Jor-El? He's my boyfriend. And then the thought bubble over Lois's head is, what rotten luck. On Earth, Lena Lang is my rival for Superman. And here on Krypton, Lara is battling me for Jor-El. I just thought it was so like chintz,
That's
kitsch.
yeah, that's so kitschy.
Yeah,
How
that's
much
great.
how much did you pay for that X-Men one? Jim Lee?
Which one? The magazine or the
The first Jim Lee
a
one.
$1.50?
Wow, dude, there's a guy on YouTube selling it for 15 plus $5 shipping.
Yeah. Well, it's not in super great shape. Remember, I texted you earlier in the week. I just found something that I think is just as good as Jabik. And you were like, no way. No way. Well, here it is. I think this was and hopefully we can get the camera to focus. So pretty. And what I'll do probably is
who or what is
Sunset Grace. It's so,
Sunset
do you recognize?
Wow. Dude, that's such a 90s cover.
Just doesn't want to cooperate. Anyway, the names are Robin and Laverne, Lovern. Mean anything? Didn't to him either. But it's so striking. And the internals are really gorgeous too. I mean, they're just just
oh, that's beautiful.
pretty stuff. Yeah. I was just
Are they the same ones who drew the interior too?
So the inker is Robin Riggs. So that must be the Robin on the cover.
Okay.
But I don't know who the Lavern is, Lovern, because the guest penciler. Oh, look at this. Look at this opener.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
Wow. That looks so much like a Jim Lee thing. Like
It does, but it's even just to me a little bit better. The Liam Sharp. Have you ever heard of Liam Sharp?
Oh, Liam Sharp's the man. Yeah, Liam Sharp's the man.
Okay, so he's one of my new faves for sure.
Liam Sharp has I came to know him. He really got my attention during DC Rebirth. He did he did some of the Wonder Woman, beautiful, and I was like, wow. And then he did he did Batman and Wonder Woman, and I bought that. It's like an Irish Gaelic tale that he tells, but he turned it into like Batman and Wonder Woman as the protagonist. That came out, I think, a couple of years ago. But that's beautiful too. I have that. His art is very his pencils are beautiful, but his art nowadays is almost like lush to where it almost looks like a pencil painting.
Really? So he's still working. He's still working.
Yeah. Yeah. And he came out with a book recently called Stonehenge that he's been pushing on Twitter.
Okay.
His work is really good.
Yeah.
And I met him at Comic-Con 2016. He's a little shorter than me, but he's like a gentle giant. He's bald, just got a big jolly smile, a real friendly guy, like one of the nicest people. So
cool. All right, so Sharp. So that's definitely one to know because I knew nothing about it. I just happened to. I was just like, whoa, this magazine is great. So it's cool. I'm gonna be keeping an eye out for him. Do you know? So you said he did DC. So he worked for DC and Marvel, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Rob, this is for Robbie. Hey, Robbie, this one's for you.
Robbie. Hey, bud.
X-Force #1. So
yeah,
random
that's the one
comic
that sold like 5
million copies. Yeah,
that he talks about a lot.
Yeah. And it has they're not attached, but it does. Is this the one? Yeah, I think this has a couple of comics or cards in it too.
It's awesome.
Again, the gimmick comics. Now this was one that you could.
Oh,
right,
dude. On the first one when I was talking about the reign of the Superman, our first episode.
Yeah,
that was one of the ones that pulled me one of my gateway drugs. Yeah, open it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how cool it was. All you need to do, do me a favor, get the green one and the blue one and the other one.
Well, but here's the thing. So the poster's still in. Here's the thing. This is random comic story for the week.
So cool.
Colleen and I come back into town. We had gone and done something Wednesday mid-afternoon, and we came back in. And so I figured, why don't we get some dinner, because we hadn't been out to do something out of the normal routine in a couple of weeks. And so we stop at this restaurant that is right here in town in Hudson, and we've been there. We go there, semi-regularly when we go out. It's one of the, we go to relatively few places, and that's one that we frequent. And we're coming in, and there's like a little waitress station there, and on the counter of the waitress station, there's a stack of comics like this. And I'm
all
like,
places.
Whoa! Right away, I go like, I gotta look at this. What's going on here? So Colleen goes and gets the seats, and I'm dicing through them, and I'm like, and it's a lot of this era stuff, and so I'm like, this is so weird. What are they doing here? Did like some kid come for dinner and then like leave his comic book collection and forget it? It's so the server person comes over, and we order some drinks, and then she brings it back over, and then I grabbed this one because I was thinking of you, and I knew you had told me about the
cool. The triangle.
the triangle in the Reign of the Superman. And so I say to the waitress, she brings us our waters and our drinks, and I said, what's the story with the comics over there? And she goes, oh, our owner is a huge comic nerd, apparently. And so he just had brought them in. These are like his slush, apparently. And he's gotten in the habit now of just putting out a pile. And if you're so inclined as a customer, you can help yourself to.
Dude, that is so awesome.
I could have taken more.
Awesome.
There was a cable that had like the embossed cover, I was feeling like greedy. I took two, and I'm like, I'm not taking any more, but there was a lot of fun stuff there, and it was just like super great. These are great. I'm so happy to have these as part of this learning process.
Not only were they there for you to peek at, but he was like, yeah, take them. That's so sweet. That's awesome. If I ever own a restaurant, I'm gonna do that. I'll have like, I still have a box of hardcovers that I'm giving to the secondhand store. Just ones that I've read and have no particular,
Stories
value
weren't all that great or whatever.
Right. It was like, okay. So that makes me think I would do something like that with hardcovers, because that's really cool. That's
cool. It was a
really
fun little
cool
thing. Hey, so She-Hulk, attorney at law, that drops this week. I didn't realize it was supposed to be a spoof. I mean,
yeah. I think a lot of the Marvel stuff now, even when they try to be semi-serious, is more spoof, even if it's unintentional.
Yeah.
So,
all right,
which to me is disheartening. I don't know. There's one Hulk for me, but if you like She-Hulk, that's great.
And I remember thinking to myself, as a little kid, 10 years old, give or take, I'm like, that's lame. That's just lame. And they're introducing all kinds of ridiculous villains in it. Man Bull. There's also the Porcupine. Some dude dressed up in this. He looks like he just looks ridiculous. Okay. She-Hulk, attorney at law. We don't need to spend any more time on that.
The only reason I'm going to tune in is to see what the lead up is for Daredevil being in it. And he's in the yellow suit, which is like, whoa, that's like a deep cut. So,
that goes back a while.
Yeah. I'll watch it, but I'm definitely not making popcorn and Twizzlers for that one.
I'm saving it for the next Lucasfilm special of the Ewoks. What?
I finally watched the first episode of Light and Magic. So cool.
It is,
so
right?
Cool. Geek Paradise.
Is it time to talk about
Batman Mask of the Phantasm?
That's the first animated Batman film that I've seen.
Stupid is bogus.
Yes.
So I've heard Paul Dini talk on Kevin Smith's old podcast, Batman on Batman. And what the original plan was to take that movie and send it, as a straight to VHS movie. Now, this is like right in the height of when the show was launched in 1992. So the show's popularity is just soaring. They decide they're going to do a movie, an original movie. Obviously, the Phantasm was not part of Batman's lore prior. So then the studio tells them, "Hey, why don't we put it in the theater for Christmas?" So they're like, "Okay." So they switch gears. They get a little more money, the production value, and the next thing you know, it was in the Christmas Day. Had a very short run. There was almost no promotion for it. Maybe a commercial here or there during the Batman cartoon, the episodes, but there was hardly any promotion. So the movie really didn't even do anything. And then it went to right to VHS. Whereas on the back market now, that movie sold so many copies of DVDs and VHSs and whatnot. And then about 2 or 3 years, I think it was 2 years ago, huge news. Batman, Mask of the Phantasm on Blu-ray, Geek Paradise. And I was so there for it. So it was like professionally done. It's more than just a cartoon.
I didn't think that I didn't think that I would enjoy it as much as I did, but the storyline was pretty good. I appreciated the way the atmospherics were done, the buildings, Gotham City, the appearance, the way they did that, and they'd use some really interesting angles and stuff to kind of like really accentuate, and exaggerate. And I appreciated that. And I liked the semi-ambiguous ending. I thought that was good too. So it was a lot. It was fun. Whoever's doing the Joker is like whack. And I'm thinking this must not be Mark Hamill. This must be before Mark Hamill or after Mark Hamill. And so then when I was watching the credits at the end and I saw Mark Hamill, I was like blown away because it's so not him at all.
Right.
Yeah.
To see how he gets into it and his mouth and the face and all this. Playworld's been gone for years now, but whenever my parents took my sister and I there, we kind of like say, "Hey, can I have a couple of dollars, Dad, to go over to Playworld?" So I go over to Playworld, and I remember seeing it. It was on a display, and I was like, "Oh," because I wanted to see it in the theater. But again, my parents didn't take me to the theater to see that one at least. And I remember I brought it home and I watched it over and over and over that weekend, over and over and over and over. It was so cool. It captured my imagination so much.
Found this clickbait article, and I want to read it to you and get your vibe on it. It's entitled "The 10 Best Batman Comics According to Goodreads." So who knows? So let's see what they have to say here. Goodreads is like a book review site. Basically, they recommend. So number 10 is The Killing Joke, 1988, Alan Moore. That's number 10. That seems low to me. Now,
we'll see.
But number 9, The Dark Knight Returns. And it looks like these are based on actual reader reviews. In other words, the summation of the reviews that have been posted. Number 8, The Long Halloween.
That's low.
Seems low, right? Number 7, Year One. Number 6, Hush.
Love that story.
Number 5, Arkham Asylum. Number 4, The Court of Owls.
We're going to cover that shortly.
It looks interesting.
Very cool.
Number 3 is Dark Victory. Number 2, The Black Mirror. And then number 1, according to readers on Goodreads, is A Death in the Family.
Yeah, I don't agree with the list, but those stories are certainly epic stories, Batman stories. The Black Mirror one, that was really popular, where Scott Snyder did, and I bought the Absolute Edition. Scott Snyder, he was writing Batman at the time for
pretty.
Yeah, he was writing it on Detective Comics, and this is before he made his jump to the main Batman title.
Okay.
And people love that story because Dick Grayson is Batman. To see Dark Victory ahead of Long Halloween, that's interesting because they're written and drawn, by the same team, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. But I think Long Halloween would be higher.
Here's the thing though, that kind of like, here's why these things are kind of so clickbaitish, right? And we all fall sucker for it, is the difference in the number of stars is fractional. We're talking a range of like 4.1 to like 4.37. So is that even any different?
Right.
It really isn't.
Right.
But it's still fun. Shall we talk about Rebirth?
Let's talk.
This is the one that I have. And that's when
hardcover.
My friend, my friend who's not Sheehan bought this for me. So I'll let you go because I read it and I enjoy it, but I don't have the comprehension of context of where this fits in the DC thing. And I'm starting to understand it's a lot bigger than I understood when I read it.
At the time, this is when Rebirth was announced. I remember Jeff Johns doing the Ashcan presentation at one of the New York Comic Cons. Might have been 2017, maybe 2017.
Yeah.
And this was huge because at the time, people complained about New 52. They rebooted so much,
right,
and changed characters and histories. Just a small example, because Batman didn't really change. But for instance, Black Canary and Green Arrow didn't. They were no longer in love. The Flash lost his love as well, I believe. So it was like things like that, and like characters like the Justice League met 5 years ago, so on and so forth. Anybody who's a geek like us is pretty familiar with the goings on in the New 52.
So this happened after this came out, after the New 52?
Yes, because what happened is Jeff Johns was still a big part of DC. And he was like, you know what? Let's give fans back what they remember and they love. Because obviously the only way you can get away with that is if sales start to struggle, right?
Right.
So they were open to the idea. So this is basically heroes rediscovering their connections, storylines from the past that come back to our present. And obviously Wally West is the key. Wally West, he was stuck in time. I forget what led to that. I'm sure somebody's going to kill
Wasn't
me.
it the Flashpoint thing? Because he keeps referencing the Flashpoint as being like the moment that, ever since
wiped him. Yeah, maybe that was like what wiped him out of consciousness.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, bam, like page 4 or 5, there's Wally.
Yeah.
So Wally appears to all the different heroes, and they don't remember him because he was from that prior universe. Thank you for that. I do think it was part of Flashpoint.
And he was going to lose himself if he stayed there too long.
Right, if he didn't find the connection.
This, what do they call it? The speed? What is it? The speed?
The speed force.
It was going to
the speed force
consume him.
Yeah, so I absolutely love things like even in Infinite Crisis and other books where they reference, or Identity Crisis 2, where they reference old times. Like you see him with the Titans here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they bring up the continuity. So it's piecing. It was really genius the way Johns did it. Piecing continuity back together.
Right.
It does reference the Flashpoint here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was the whole point, is he comes back and he's basically the tether for the reader of like, hey, we know you guys want this back, so we're going to give you Wally West, and Wally West is going to be, like our surrogate, so that he brings back the, all the stories that we loved from the prior continuity, and bringing about hope and change and like a more optimistic, traditional DC comics, as opposed to like I don't know, it was almost, to me, New 52, especially Superman, it was kind of like, it was almost them doing like an image thing, like an in-your-face thing for the present age. But,
I'll have to, I noticed as I was going through my singles and boarding today, bagging, I have some of the New 52 that I've just picked up randomly. It probably won't be super helpful, but I'll have to look at them and see if I can get a sense of like, what that felt like, or how they were handling the stories at that time. But generally, is that kind of like the new 52? Is that kind of like almost becoming non-canon?
Very much so, to where they stripped away. I'm a big continuity geek, so I love that this happened and that happened and that happened, and
Me
it's
too.
kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like a reward for keeping up with the stories, right?
Right.
Or investing ourselves emotionally. Whereas nowadays, it's like, continuity. Let's just tell the story to sell comics, right?
Yeah.
But here, this is like the Dinah Lance and Green Arrow thing I was talking about.
Right.
This is Wally speaking. He says, Oliver Queen and Dinah Lance, Green Arrow and the Black Canary, they barely even know each other anymore. But when their eyes meet, they feel a spark that
Right.
neither one of them can explain.
Right.
A void deep inside them, something buried deep in their hearts. And again, that's the continue with the reader, you and I, right? This strange feeling keeps them up at night wondering, what have they lost? And it's got them, he's looking at her, she's looking at him, but they're in like
Two
bedrooms
different
wherever
places.
across
Yeah.
town. Right.
Right.
So things like that. And then, of course, you got the bearded Superman who comes from our universe, the universe, to take over for the new 52 Superman. This was an absolutely epic time. And as I've told you, this whole time got me into reading individual. Like, I went to the comic store and bought the individual Rebirth comics because I was so excited for the number ones to see, wow, where are we going with this? I remember being, what, at the time in 2016, that was 6 years, 34 years old. And it was like I was 14 then. Like, I was so excited for it. And
Yeah.
I started buying individual comics again. It was the first time in years because I had only been keeping up with the trades, you know. And I love how they rotate through artists. You got Gary Frank, Ethan Bent, Skyver. I think there's even some pages done by Fabic.
Mm-hmm.
And then you finally see the Flash. He appears to the Flash here,
Right.
right?
And the
And
Flash is
then,
actually the one that actually ends up like it works.
right, exactly. It's Barry Allen, because before this, Barry Allen came back from the dead. So Wally West had been the Flash,
Oh,
and then
you know
boom,
what I thought
and
was
then
fun?
bam, there he is.
Yeah. So
Well,
just before that, I thought it was super cool for me that Swamp Thing was in there.
yeah, even Swamp Thing. Yeah.
I thought that was cool. I
And
mean,
then,
it's a one single frame, but still, it was just like,
mhm.
oh, yeah.
But then here, the piece de resistance. So here, Wally's back. He looks up, right, and then they go to the Batcave. Barry says, "Are you sure this wasn't my fault?" And Wally says, "It wasn't, Barry. It was something else.
Right.
It was something else." And then they show the lightning, someone else, and then they transfer to the Batcave, and he says, "Whoever they are, they did this for a reason. I think they took years from us to weaken us."
Right.
Now, the years having referenced the fact that DC editorial, when they did the New 52, they took years from these characters because no more relationships of certain kind, depending on whatever fits the story. And then here, Batman's looking and looking and looking, right?
Yeah.
And then I can't even tell you how awesome it was when this happened. So you see him, he gets the pick out of his belt, and then he starts picking at the rock because he sees something.
Right.
And then here we go. Boom. He finds the Watchman button. I can't tell you. This is like bumps. This is like, what? They're the Watchman? What?
Watchmen.
Dr. Manhattan?
Because I
Yeah, and
guess
then look,
prior
boom,
Watchmen
it
was,
fades to black
yeah. And then you get
because
kind of like this Dr. Manhattan kind of a thing, right? In the
yeah,
epilogue.
because remember at the end of Watchmen, he goes to Mars and he talks about how he's gonna create life. Now, when the story ended, I think it was what, like 1986 or 88. I think it was
Yeah, I don't
86 when it
know.
came out. It was like, all right, it was the end. It was like, all right, he's going off. That was his write off. But then Jeff Johns taps into it. Look, there's Earth.
Yeah.
Oh, look. Now we're going to Mars. And it's like, whoa. And then here, because he had disassembled he had done the whole thing with the time and the watches. And then here he's putting the watch back together. It's
Right.
cracked. And then he's putting it back together. And then the watch matches the countdown of the Watchmen. This was so well done, and it was so exciting.
Those last two
And
frames, actually, I I think the last 4 frames, the dialogue matches directly out of the Watchmen.
Correct. Absolutely. Yes. This was so well done. And here, the clock is ticking across the DC universe. And this is when, it was announced that Doomsday Clock was gonna be coming out. I cannot tell you how excited I was.
Okay,
I mean,
so
I was
Doomsday,
like, oh man!
Doomsday.
But what had happened is intermittently after this, it was done so well in that. So Jeff Johns hints at Dr. Manhattan, and then in certain stories, for instance, like the Titans, all of a sudden, like they talk about a story and the guy says Manhattan. The word is Manhattan. So like in the Titans, they're referencing Manhattan. And then there's other stories that happen that reference something happening with the timeline. And like Justice League versus Suicide Squad, there was a character who referenced seeing Dr. Manhattan. So it was like the hints of Dr. Manhattan all throughout the line, not just in one like title.
Right.
So it was all coming together to Doomsday Clock. And it was this huge thing, but then, DC dropped the ball. But for me personally, it was like the fever of Death of Superman.
Yeah.
It was like that epic, like, wow, and you're getting on the ground floor with it. If you ever see it on TV, watch The Watchmen. It's so well done. And then compare it to the book. It's just like, it's almost page for page.
You said they punted it. DC kind of blew it,
Yes,
at what point did you feel that it was blown? Like when was it blown?
Probably after an issue that was super delayed, because it was supposed to be done, I believe it was November of 2017.
In which arc are we talking about now?
Doomsday Clock. It was 12 issues.
Yeah.
So Johns was writing it, Gary Frank was drawing it. And then all of a sudden, DC, Scott Snyder's Batman was selling so well. And then he's like, hey, I'm going to do this whole Dark Knight's Metal thing through the multiverse and blah, blah, blah. And so I have not read this. I have not seen it. No one has reported on it. It's just my hypothesis. I think Jeff Johns went back and the book became delayed because he was trying to include whatever was going on at DC at that time. So like Scott Snyder's Dark Knight's Metal, he was trying to include that in what he was doing in like he had a plan of like, all right, these 12 months, each one of these I'm going to do. But then Snyder starts with his Dark Knight's Metal, which sold outstandingly well. So DC could care less if it tied into Doomsday Clock. Continuity be damned, right? So I think Jeff Johns was like, all right, I wrote this issue, but then Scott did this. So now I need to go back and change this because I wanted to tie into what he's doing. And then it just became too much. I think Snyder's plans kind of derailed what Johns had planned. And so Johns couldn't keep up with it. So next thing you know, like the book is delayed a couple of weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. So something that was supposed to come out within 1 year ended up taking like 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wow. That's way too, yeah.
And people completely fell off the wagon. But I mean, DC messed up the whole continuity anyway, because Doomsday Clock was supposed to come out in that 12 months and like reset, almost like a mini reboot, but reset the whole universe.
Yeah.
But what Snyder did ended up not jiving, and so the continuity just became a whole mess. And
the whole thing didn't matter.
Right.
At that point, the whole thing that this supposedly was fixing now doesn't matter again.
Correct. It's like
we're even worse off than we were before.
Absolutely. It's like, hey, we need money, so we need to sell these stories. We're not going to have patience. It's like the curtain is coming up. Like, hey, we're going back to what is familiar.
Okay.
They did this on a lot of the deluxe editions, hardcovers, and trade paperbacks for probably almost 2 years, and then they just dropped it to where once Dark Knight's Metal came out, like Rebirth was basically like, it was like, which is unfortunate because to me, a longtime fan and a lot of other longtime fans, like listeners here, it was huge. It was like everything. It was everything. And DC just took a massive dump on it. Massive. They really did.
So DC pulled a Sheehan.
Oh, like a triple scoop Sheehan with a side of Sheehan sauce. That's what they did, dude. They were like, ugh.
Too much Sheehan's not good for anyone. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Sheehan in moderation.
Sheehan in moderation. Yes. Yes.
This episode apparently DC is Sheehan.
DC is Sheehan. Back when they were doing Rebirth, they were DC.
Throwing a blanket over it and look like I'm living in a trailer somewhere.
Yeah, aren't you going to ask me what I'm reading?
What are you reading this week?
Well, this week, speaking of the Flash with Rebirth, I'm reading the volume 1 of Jeff Johns' Flash run. I've never read it before. This is so 90s, but in a very charming way. Yeah. And look, I've got this super duper.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah. So the art is like so 90s. It's like cartoony, but it's I'm at the beginning. It's cartoony.
If
the story is cool.
Yeah.
No, that's what it is, because it was like, this is where Jeff Johns like really made a name for himself, and then he did Green Lantern, I believe. On the back it says he enriched the characters in the universe like no one ever before with the Flash, because the Flash is like at that time in the 90s, the Flash was like, you know, B minus character.
Exactly.
But Jeff Johns, who, and he became famous for this, because then he went from this to Green Lantern. And the JSA, he made what was old new again and relevant. Yeah. So I'm super excited to read this. And then this is volume 1, and I have volume 2 and 3 as well. So I am super jazzed to keep reading this.
Nice. If you like this content, what are you supposed to do?
Smash that like button.
Whoa!
Smash that like button. Please
smash
subscribe.
It up, man.
And let us know if you like what we're doing. If you think we're boring, you know, and dry. If there's something you want to see, if you want to see me like froth at the mouth when I go through books, just tell me, because I will. I'm really toning it down so that I could be, you know, cordial for the.
Well, he doesn't like getting his
audience
wet either.
No, I don't.
That's the pitch.
Yeah.
So who is Sheehan?
I'm not Sheehan.
You're not Sheehan?
No, and you're not Sheehan either. I know that for a fact. We had you tested.